Hi, all. Okay, so here is what we would have talked about in class today. Reminder that this is found in your week 7 module. It is called Discussion, Analysis, or Summary. No points, no due date, but it is open for you to submit comments or questions if you have them. Um, I wanted to go over this because for your annotated bib, remember you have two options to complete that annotation. Um, for that 200 to 300 words, you can either do two separate paragraphs or one. Like I was saying in class, the two separate paragraphs is a little bit easier because you're breaking up your summary and your analysis, which we'll go over in a second. If you're doing one paragraph, it's a little bit more advanced. It requires a little bit more narrative skill to weave together the summary and analysis, but it also will help you and prepare you for your next paper, the literature review. So I'm just going to read through this really quickly. The summary portion is a shortened, rephrased version of original source material. It informs the reader, me, and your peer reviewer by answering more factual type questions such as who, what, when, and where. So, like I said in the email or the announcement I sent out at the beginning of the week, what I want you to all be able to do as you're reading your peer-reviewed journal articles, I need to reiterate that your 3 articles must be peer-reviewed. So if you're finding them on the library's database, make sure you click the button for peer review. If you are not sure if your article is peer reviewed or not, send me a message, send me a link, or shoot me the title and what journal it's found in, and we can work that out. So in this summary, what you should be able to write about, um, if you're doing the 2 paragraph method, save about, so if it's a 200 to 300 words, you're going to want 100 to 150 words, maybe potentially 200 words. You can make it 2/3 of it. That is focused on what is the author's question, what is their thesis, how are they supporting or answering that question, and how are they supporting that thesis. Um, so that is the who and the what. The when and the where are not as important, but that is part of a summary if you were doing like a novel summary. What this summary does is it should be able to briefly restate original information by presenting only the main points or key ideas. So do not waste time and space, and specifically word count, on full quotes. Make sure you can take a sentence or 3 sentences that are really powerful from your article and rewrite them in your own words in less than half the word count. Okay, so one of the things I suggest doing is if you read, if you're taking notes and you have like 2 sentences that you think are really great and really important, read it a couple of times and then put it out of sight and try to rewrite the gist of what that author's trying to say in your own words. The other important part about a summary is that it is neutral and objective. So you literally are just saying the author said this, they supported that statement in these ways, they used this rationale, they made these choices. You are not adding in your opinion or your analysis of what they're doing. Um, and then you typically use third person point of view. So the authors say this. This is something that is also really important, and it'll be even more important in your next paper. But for this paper, it is fine to say the author because we know that your annotation is about the article that you have on your reference list. When you start writing your literature review, the author will not be acceptable because you will have a minimum of 8 authors that you're referring to. So just saying the author will be very confusing. Um, However, when you do that, you want to always use either the full name, so John McBride, or just the last name, McBride. Never use first name only. The other thing is that for this paper, annotated bib, as well as for your lit review, do not waste word counts on the titles of articles. For the annotated bib, you only have 200 to 300 words. We already know what your article title is, so do not use it in your actual summary. Just say this article argues that, dot, 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 right? Provide context for and then the last thing it does is it provides context for the claims that you're making in other parts of the paper. So this is the summary of why you're using this article. Now, this summary doesn't have to be about every single part of your article, especially if you have like a 26-page article and really there's only 1 or 2 concepts in the whole article that are useful to you. Summarize those 1 or 2 points. If they're making 2 or 3 arguments or they have 2 or 3 theses, just focus on the one that's most important to you. Don't try to do everything. Just do what is most useful for you. So that moves us to our second paragraph, which would be the analysis piece. So an analysis is a careful, in-depth examination of a specific work, in this case, this article. It normally answers more critical questions such as how, why, and what. So part of this is saying, okay, how did this author answer their research question? What method did they use to answer that question? Why did they make the choices that they made? What was the result? And then adding in, now you can add in your opinion. So if you have an opinion about the method that they used and you think that they could have done something different, this is where you get to share that. You also get to share now why you think this article is important to the work that you're doing, how this article will help support your thesis and answer your question. So what the analysis does is it scrutinizes the article that you're reading for deeper meaning. It examines assumptions. So what assumptions was the author making with their concept? So this is where the conceptualization worksheet comes back into play, right? That author used specific terms and they conceptualize them in specific ways, and they assume that you, the reader, are going to read it the way that they have conceptualized it. If it's clear and if they've conceptualized well, then you will. But if it's not clear, then you might take it in a different way. And that is an opportunity in the analysis to say, hey, they're using this term of care to mean physical and financial well-being, but what they're talking about sounds more like emotional support. And so you as the person that's analyzing the article gets to point out the different ways that you can conceptualize the term care, for example. Your analysis offers offers supported opinion or judgment. So again, depending on how you're going to use this paper in your overall project, which will eventually be your literature review, is it useful or not? And you can share that in this analysis section in this second paragraph. Examines information and explains its significance to the point being made by you and builds off the summary. So what is really important here is that if you're doing these the 2-paragraph method for your annotation, 1/3 to 2/3 will be the summary, and then 1/3 to 2/3, so the other half will be the analysis. So paragraph 1, what is the article about? Paragraph 2, how are you using it? And what is working and what is not in connection with your research question and your thesis. So that's one option. The other option is to combine um, the summary and analysis into one paragraph. And again, this takes a little bit more skill. It's going to take a little bit more narrative to be able to say, okay, this author makes this argument, and that argument is supported in these ways. However, I feel that they're missing this point, or there's a hole or a flaw in their argument in these ways. Um, when they make this argument, they share they share that they're making that argument using this method, and while that method works in supporting their argument, it doesn't work for supporting my argument, and so I would do this differently. Okay, so that one's a little bit more nuanced, and it takes a little bit more crafting, so that the paper or the annotation doesn't feel choppy between moving from summary to analysis and back and forth. So it's really up to you. Something that was asked at the end of class, and I will pull this up really quick, between this analysis and summary discussion, the announcement that I sent out on Monday, and then the actual annotated bib assignment sheet, I want to make sure everyone is clear that I'm asking for the same thing in all three of these places. It's just that I'm rephrasing it in ways that hopefully the more times I say it, the clearer it gets, or I say it in ways that is that touches some of you and makes sense to some of you, and other ways I say it makes sense to others. So just to review, we need to find 3 peer-reviewed journal articles on a chosen topic. Your conceptualization worksheet should be helping you there. Make sure that when you submit this annotation, you have as your title or an entry paragraph or an entry few sentences, what is your question, what is your thesis? Just so I have context for why you chose these 3 articles. So an annotated bibliography, this is just a definition from USC. When you compile these annotations, like I said, you can use 2 or 1 paragraph. It's informative and substantive, which means that you're telling us what the thesis is or the hypothesis is, what method they're using, so how they're answering that question, how they're supporting their thesis, conclusion and findings, and again, some other, like, it seeks to answer these questions. What's the author's main argument, also known as their thesis? What's their thesis? What are their key findings? What is their support of that thesis? What conclusions or recommended actions did the author state? If it is a persuasive thesis, it might just be an analytical thesis. In that case, it would just be like historical or definitional understandings of terms. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, 200 to 300 words per annotation. So in total, we're looking at a 600 to 900 word paper. Those 600 to 900 words do not include the reference itself. So it's just the actual writing that you're doing. We will be talking on Monday and Wednesday about ASA citations, which, do I even have that on here as like a requirement? I don't think I do. But we will talk about that to not stress anybody out. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. I hope your ears are doing better and your eyes after that lovely fire drill. And I'll see you all on Monday. Thank you.